The rain hammered against Marcus Webb's windshield like 1,000 tiny fists, each drop a reminder of how quickly life could turn treacherous. He squinted through the deluge, his knuckles white on the steering wheel, thinking about the two little faces waiting for him at home. Emma, 7 with her gap-toothed smile, and Jake, 5, who still asked when Mommy was coming back even though it had been 18 months. Marcus's chest tightened the way it always did when he thought about Sarah, about the cancer that had stolen her away, leaving him to navigate this storm alone, both the one outside and the one that raged constantly in his heart. The groceries in the back seat shifted as he took the turn toward Maple Street, and Marcus mentally calculated whether the chicken would last through Thursday. Money was tighter than it had ever been. The medical bills still arrived with cruel regularity, each envelope a ghost of the past that haunted his present. His construction job paid the rent barely, but there was never enough left over for the extras that turned a house into a home, the little joys that might make his children's eyes light up the way they used to. That's when he saw her, through the waterfall cascading down his window. A figure stood on the shoulder of the road, hunched against the storm beside a car, with its hood propped open like a mouth frozen mid-scream. The woman was drenched, her clothes plastered to her thin frame, and even from a distance Marcus could see she was shaking. Every practical bone in his body screamed at him to keep driving. He was already running late. The kids were with Mrs. Chen next door, and he'd promised Emma he'd help with her science project tonight. Plus, he'd heard the stories. People staged breakdowns to rob Good Samaritans. In this neighborhood, you learn to keep your head down and your doors locked. But then the figure turned slightly, and Marcus caught a glimpse of her face. She was older, maybe in her 60s, with gray hair hanging in wet ropes around her shoulders. She reminded him achingly of his own mother, who had passed when he was just 22, before she could meet her grandchildren. Marcus pulled over. "Damn it," he muttered to himself, but he was already reaching for the door handle. The rain hit him like a physical blow as he stepped out, immediately soaking through his work jacket. He jogged toward the woman who looked up at him with a mixture of hope and wariness. "Car trouble?" Marcus shouted over the storm. The woman nodded, her lips trembling, whether from cold or emotion. He couldn't tell. "Won't start. I called for a tow, but they said it could be hours. I don't know what to do." Up close, Marcus noticed details that made his heart sink. Her coat was thin, worn at the elbows. Her shoes had seen better years. The car itself was ancient, held together by prayer and rust. This wasn't someone playing games. This was someone who had simply run out of luck on a day when the world had decided to be cruel. "Let me take a look," Marcus said, though he knew precious little about cars beyond the basics. He peered under the hood, rain pelting his back, and jiggled a few connections. The battery terminals were corroded, but that wasn't the main problem. The engine was cold and wet, and without proper tools, there wasn't much he could do. "I don't think I can fix it here," he admitted, returning to where she stood. "But I can't leave you out here. Let me give you a ride." "Where are you headed?" The woman's eyes widened. "Oh, I couldn't ask you to." "You're not asking. I'm offering." Marcus surprised himself with the firmness in his voice. Sarah would have done the same thing in a heartbeat, and somehow, that made the decision feel less like a choice and more like a promise he was keeping to her memory. The woman introduced herself as Dorothy Chen, no relation to his neighbor, she assured him with a small smile, as she settled into his passenger seat. She was shivering violently, so Marcus cranked up the heat, despite the fact that it would make the grocery chicken spoil faster. "I was trying to get to Mercy Hospital," Dorothy said quietly. "I volunteer there 3 times a week, reading to the children in the cancer ward. I never miss it. Those kids, they wait for me and I just..." Her voice cracked. "I couldn't bear the thought of disappointing them." Marcus's hands tightened on the wheel. "The cancer ward? Yes, I started volunteering there after my daughter passed. 5 years ago. She was 32, had a little boy. Reading to those children, it helps me feel close to her somehow." The silence that filled the car was heavy with shared grief. Marcus's throat felt thick. "My wife," he said finally. 18 months ago. Breast cancer. I have 2 kids." Dorothy turned to look at him, and in her eyes, Marcus saw a reflection of his own pain, worn smoother by time but never truly gone. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. They drove in companionable quiet after that, the storm beginning to ease as they made their way across town. When Marcus pulled up to the hospital entrance, Dorothy reached for the door handle but then paused. "Wait here just a moment," she said. "Please." She disappeared inside before Marcus could protest, leaving him confused in the driver's seat. 10 minutes passed, then 15. He was about to pull away when Dorothy emerged with a younger woman in scrubs. "Marcus," Dorothy said breathlessly as he rolled down his window. "This is Jennifer Hartman. She's the director of the pediatric ward. I just told her about you, about your wife, about your children." She gripped the car door, her eyes intense. "Jennifer, tell him." The younger woman leaned down, her expression kind but professional. "Mr. Webb, we have a support program here at Mercy for families who've lost someone to cancer. Counseling services, child care assistance, even financial aid for medical bills. Dorothy seems to think you might qualify and could benefit." Marcus felt something crack open in his chest. I don't know what to say." "Say you'll come in next week and let us talk to you properly," Jennifer said, handing him a card. "Say you'll let us help." Over the following months, that chance encounter transformed Marcus's life in ways he never could have imagined. The hospital's program helped restructure his medical debt, making the payments manageable. Emma and Jake started attending a grief support group for children, where they finally began to process their mother's death in healthy ways. Marcus himself found solace in weekly counseling sessions, learning that strength sometimes meant accepting help rather than struggling alone. But Dorothy's impact went deeper still. She became a fixture in their lives, a grandmother figure who showed up for school plays and soccer games, who taught Emma to bake Sarah's favorite cookies from memory, who sat with Jake when the nightmares came. She filled some of the holes that grief had carved, not by replacing what was lost, but by offering something new and unexpected. The reminder that family could be found in the most unlikely places. On a spring afternoon, nearly a year after that rainy night, Marcus stood in his backyard watching Emma and Jake play while Dorothy sat beside him in a lawn chair, a photo album open on her lap. She was showing him pictures of her daughter, sharing stories she'd kept locked away for too long. "You know," Dorothy said softly, "I almost didn't go to the hospital that day. I was tired, the car had been acting up, and I thought maybe I'd skip it just once." She looked up at him with tears in her eyes. "But something told me I had to go, and then you stopped." Marcus put his hand over hers. "Sarah used to say that people come into our lives for a reason. I never really believed it until that night. Do you think she'd be proud of how you've handled everything?" "I think," Marcus said, watching his children laugh in the sunshine, "she'd be proud that I finally learned to accept help, that I stopped trying to carry everything alone." He squeezed Dorothy's hand. "And I think she'd have loved you." The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the grass, painting everything in shades of gold. In the distance, thunder rumbled, another storm rolling in. But this time, Marcus didn't worry. He'd learned that storms passed, that help could come from unexpected places, and that the simple act of stopping for a stranger in the rain could change everything. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is pull over. Sometimes kindness is the bridge that carries you from one life to another, and sometimes the family you find is exactly the family you need.